today I'm going to show you how to make this little bracelet that I'm calling Pearl Fountains. I originally intended to make this a bracelet with a button closure, but I decided that the button didn't look right, so I made another component to use as my clasping, and that's what we're going to do today with a little loop to go around it. Now, it's a fairly wide bracelet, as you can see, and it takes some time. It takes quite a few beads, but this tutorial is probably going to be long also, because I had previously designed the components themselves, but I hadn't really put the bracelet together and hadn't really decided exactly what I wanted to do with my embellishments. So as I made the tutorial, I was designing. So if there's some hesitation, there is, and some goof ups or whatever, I hope you understand. But anyway, it should be fairly easy to follow, and it does turn out to be a really pretty bracelet. So let's get started on this project. For this project, you will need 6mm round beads. I am using a glass pearl, and it is ivory. Then you will need 4mm bicone crystals. This is a Swarovski, and it is AAB fuchsia, I believe. And then you will need a 4mm round pearl or round bead. I am using an ivory glass pearl. You will also need several grams of 11/0 seed beads, and I am using a Toho cream pearlized. And you will also need several yards of 8-pound Fireline and a size 10 beading needle. Start with the full 2 wingspans of Fireline on your needle, and we'll get started. Thread your Fireline onto your needle, and let's begin by picking up 3 pearls and 3 11/0 seed beads onto our needle. We'll start with an 11/0, pick up a pearl, 11/0, pearl, 11/0, and pearl. Now we're going to bring these down to the end of our thread. It doesn't have to be a long tail, just leave enough at the end here to tie a knot. So pick it up and tie. It's an overhand knot. Just make sure when you do this that your knot goes down between the beads and not on top of them. I'm going to tie one more and pull it really tight, and this is what I have. Now I am going to sew back through all of these beads. So just from where my knot is, I'm going to start sewing through the 11/0s and the 6mm rounds until I get all the way around our little base unit here. Once you get to where your knot is, just sew past it into the next bead. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and sew even one more time into the next 6mm round right here. So here is where I am coming out of. Here is where my tail is, just to make sure that it's out of my way. Now I'm going to begin another unit right here, and since I'm going to be including this one in the unit, and we have 3 beads per unit, I will only be using 2 of my 6mm rounds. So I'll pick up an 11/0, a 6mm round, an 11/0, a 6mm round, and 11/0. And this is what we will have here. We're coming out of this side of this 6mm round, and we're going to go into the opposite side of it. And this is what you should have. Well, let me pull more thread through my needle here. It's too long. There we go. that's what we have. Now we need to sew back through this entire unit because it's loose and wobbly and we need to secure it. So we're just going to go back through the beads we just added, all of them, until we get into the connecting bead right here. And now we need to sew into this bead to start our next unit. So we're going to go through this 11-0 and the 6mm round. We're going to pull everything really tight, make sure our tension is good. And we're going to start another unit right here. So we're coming out of the 6mm round. We're going to pick up an 11-0, a 6mm round, an 11-0, a 6mm round, and an 11-0. And this is what you will have on your needle. Now, when you're coming out of this side, we are going to go into the opposite side of the 6mm round. And this is what you should have now. You will sew back through all of these beads until you get back into the connecting bead. Pull good tension on them as you do this to tighten them nicely. And now I'm coming through my connecting bead right here. But I have to sew all the way back around because my next unit, I'm going to use this bead and this bead to be a part of my last unit. So I'll only need to add one pearl and three 11-0 seed beads. But I need to get over to here. So since I'm coming out here, I'm going to sew through all of these beads until I get to that 6mm round bead that I need to put my next unit in. So come through this one, a little piece of paint on the bead. Alright, so now I'm coming out of the bead that I want to connect to. Now since I have two beads already, this time I won't need to add two. I will only need to add one of my 6mm rounds. But I'll still need to add all three of my 11-0s. So I'm going to pick up my 11-0 first. I'm coming out of this bead. I'm going to go into this bead directly across from it, the one that I'm going to connect to right here to make my next unit. And make sure your thread doesn't tangle everywhere. And pull, just like that. Now we need to add our last bead and our last two 11-0s. So we're going to pick up an 11-0, a 6mm round, and an 11-0, like this. Coming out of this bead, we're going to go all the way over to this bead and into the 11-0 right here. Let's get just a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to go into this 11-0 and then into this 6mm round here. Move my tail out of the way and pull these beads into place. Just like this. Now, this is going to want to dome a little bit, and that's okay. You can let it dome. Pull everything tight so that these beads in the center kind of pop up a little bit. Now, let me back off because I will not stay in frame. I don't even know if I was in frame. If I wasn't, I apologize. Anyway, I'm coming out of this bead now. I need to get back up into these center beads so that I can secure them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew back through this entire unit that I just added. So I'm going to go through this 11. I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm going to go through this 11-0 and 6-0. And then through this 11-0 and 6-0 and through the 11-0 on top here. Pull everything very tightly. And now we're going to join these four beads together in the center here. So I'm coming out of this one, I'm going to sew into this one, and into this one, this project will bend your needle all up. Just anticipate that. get some tight corners that we have to go through doing this. And since I dropped it, just continue going all the way around the 4 beads. Just like this. And this is what you should have. I'm going to go through one more just for the heck of it, and then I'm going to go through the 6 right beneath it, like this. Now, I'm going to cut my tail off. I'm going to leave a little so that I can melt it in. Move it away from your 11/0. You'll never be able to get through it if it goes down into your 11/0. So move it away like this. And then we're coming out of this 6mm round bead right here. We're going to go up into this 11/0 and this 6mm round right here. We are then going to go through this 11/0 seed bead right here. And now we are going to pick up a 4mm bicone crystal. And we are going to go from this 11/0 here that we're exiting into this 11/0 and the 6mm round behind it. And then we're just going to pull it into place. Then we're coming out of this 6mm, we're going to go into this 11/0 here. And we're going to grab a 4mm bicone and then go into this 11/0 and this 6mm round. Just like that. And again, same thing. Go through the 11/0, pick up your bicone, go into the next 11/0 and your pearl. And then one more time. Go through the 11/0, pick up a bicone, and go through the next 6mm bead. Okay, so now we're coming out of this 6mm bead. We're going to start an embellishment on the top here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick up 5 11/0 seed beads. So this is, whoop, there it goes. This is what you'll have on your needle, except for you don't want 6, you want 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So we're coming out of this 6mm round. We're going to go up into this 11/0 seed bead on the top here. Now it can be a little tricky to get through. You have to kind of just finagle your needle around and then pull the beads down over the 6mm rounds like this. Now we're coming out of this 11/0 seed bead here. We are going to pick up 5 more 11/0s. Coming out here, we're going to go back into this 6mm round, avoiding any beads on either side of it. Just go through the 6. Just like that. So through the 11/0, between the bicone and the 6mm round. It's kind of hard to find, but so through it. This one here, let me show you. Down here in our original first pass. Then, or of our first embellishment, I guess I would say. Then go through the crystal. Then again through the 11/0 and the 6mm round. It's like this. And we will start our embellishment again. Pick up 5 11/0 seed beads, like this. You're coming out here. You're going to go into this little bead in the center, trying to avoid the pearls, and push it through. And then pick up 5 more 11-0 seed beads, and come down through the 6mm round you started in. Pull the beads down. I've got something tangled here. Okay, there we go. Make sure that there's good tension on these. You don't want them to be sloppy. And then we're going to go through, we're coming out of this little 6mm round. We're going to go through the 11-0. And you can very rarely get through the 11-0 and the bicone crystal at once because of the angles that they lie at. So if you can, great. If you can't, then just do it in several strokes here. So now I've gone through the crystal. I'm going to go through this 11-0 here and the 6mm round here. And now I'm going to pick up 5 11-0 seed beads, and I'm going to come up through the middle 11-0, push down on the pearl, and you can get through like this. Oh, there goes my piece. And here comes a tangle and blah, 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 blah. This is going to be a fun one. Stephanie's going to have something to say to me, and Jane's going to laugh at me. I know you guys, I know how you are. Okay, right there. Now, I'm coming out at the little 11-0 on the top. I'm going to pick up 5 more 11-0s. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to go through the 6mm round again. I know this is repetitious, but when we get to this last one here, you have to finagle your needle through a little differently. So I'm going to show you. Let's go ahead and sew through our 11-0. And then we will sew through the bicone crystal and the 11-0 here and the 6mm round. And then we're picking up our 5 11-0 seed beads. Now, to go through this one here is very difficult because it's really buried in there. So you're going to have to go at an angle, grab the side of it the best you can, and go at an angle and push your needle through the back of your piece. Like this. And you can see it's coming out the back. Pull your needle through. Turn your piece over. This is where my thread is coming through. Let me show you. I'm going to get whoop, not that close. Yeeks. Okay, now we're coming out right here. We're going to stay in the same spot. We're going to look on the other side, make sure we're not coming through any beads in the top, and just bring our needle back through. Just like that. Okay? Now, we're coming out of the 11-0 seed bead in the proper position to add the rest of our embellishment. So, back up and pick up your next 5 11-0s. Like this. We're coming out here. Let's go into the 6mm, like this. And this is what you should have, just like that. Now, we're coming out of this 6mm pearl. Yeah, you guys are going to have a heyday with me. Everyone's going to make fun of me. That's okay. I like it. So, anyway, now what we're going to do is we're going to add an extension for our next piece here. So, what we're going to do is we are going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a 4mm round, an 11-0 seed bead, and a 6mm round, an 11-0 seed bead, and a 4mm round, and an 11-0 seed bead. This is what we have. Now we're coming out of this side of this 6mm round. we are going to go into this side. Make sure all your embellishments that you did in your last step are nice and tight. Pull these beads down around, just like this, and then sew through all of them that you just added. To make sure that they're nice and secure and neat. Come through the 6mm here, the connecting one. So we are coming out of the 6mm round right here. We're going to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads and a bicone crystal, and then we're going to pick up an 11/0 and a bicone crystal and 2 11/0s, like that. We're coming out of this side of this 6mm round, the connecting bead. We're going to go into the opposite side. Only go through the pearl. Don't go through any of the beads on either side of it. Pull these beads over the top of the little unit we just added. Now turn it to the side and you will see we are coming out of the 6mm round here. We need to come through this 11/0 and we need to come through this 4mm round. So we're going to put the needle into these beads here on the side. We're going to go ahead and, if you can capture them all, go through all 3 of the beads on the side of the unit. Now come through the 6mm pearl right here, and then pick up 2 11/0s, a bicone crystal, like this. I'm going to back off just a little. I'm just too close. And we're going to go into the 11/0 on top. So we're coming out of the pearl here. We're going to go into this little 11/0 between the crystals and pull it all together here. Then we will pick up a bicone crystal and 2 11/0s, like this, and come down through the 6mm round, like that. Pull everything tight, make sure it's nice and neat and it looks good, and then we will start a new unit right here. So what we're going to do is we're coming out of this 6mm round. We're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, then we're going to pick up a 6mm round, an 11/0 seed bead, the 6mm round, and an 11/0 seed bead, just like this. This one we're going to share in our next unit. So we're coming out of this side, we're going to go into this side. Make sure you avoid the beads on either side. Now your embellishment may come a little loose on the top there. If it does, pull your new beads loose, tighten everything up. You can always sew back through them if you need to, if they're not going to stay nice. Once you sew through this unit, if you've got it looking nice, you should have it secured. So now we're going to sew back through this unit we just added. So try not to let your beads move around too much. We can keep everything nice and neat, and sew back through all the beads we just added. Between each gathering of beads, pull your thread nice and tight. Go through all of them. As you exit the 6mm here, you'll need to, now that you're here, make sure everything's tight. You will need to now sew over to this bead. So we're going to come down through here and exit here. Right here. We're going to add our next unit, including this bead in our next unit. So we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a 6mm round, an 11/0 seed bead, a 6mm round, an 11/0 seed bead, and then this is what you have. Then we're coming out of this side, we're going to come out of this side.
or go into this side, the opposite side that your thread is exiting from. Pull the beads around just like this. Now we're going to sew around this entire new unit until we get to our connecting bead, just to make sure that everything's tight. Okay, so we're in our connecting bead. We need to get to this one to make our next unit. So we're going to sew into the 11/0 and the next 6 millimeter round. This is what it should look like. Now we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a 6 millimeter round, an 11/0 seed bead, a 6 millimeter round, and an 11/0 seed bead. And we're exiting from this one. We're going to go into this one. Pull tight. Sew up through all the beads you just added.
So this is what you should have. We're in our connecting bead now. Now we need to add our last one here, just like we did on our last unit. So we need to sew all the way around until we can get to this bead.
So we're going to go up through this 11/0 and 6 millimeter round, through this 11/0 and
6 millimeter round right here.
And now we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead. We're going to connect this bead to this bead. So we're going to go into this one. We have an 11/0 on our needle, and pull the beads together like this, and it'll start the dome like that. Pick up an 11/0, a 6 millimeter round, and an 11/0 seed bead like this. And we are coming out of this purl here. We're going to go into this purl here, and the 11/0, and this purl. If you can do them all at once, that's fine. If not, go through them one at a time. And pull the unit tightly together.
Like that.
Now, sew back through this unit completely. So I'm coming out of this connecting bead. I'm just going to sew through this entire unit again. Now, I'm going to go into this bead here. Oops. Guess I was out of camera. Sorry, guys. Right here. And I'm in the top here. I'm going to sew through all 4 of these top beads to pull them together, secure them, and make them nice and neat. Don't pull them horribly tight because it makes it really hard to get through when we do our embellishment. Just pull them nice and neat. I'm going to go through one more time. I'm going to go down through the 6 millimeter right underneath the one I'm exiting, just like this. I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm going to sew into this 11/0 seed bead right here. And then I'm going to sew through the 6 millimeter round. Let's back up a little bit. Sorry, let me arrange my camera a little bit here. Okay. Now, I'm coming out of this 6 millimeter round. I'm going to go into this 11/0 seed bead, and I'm going to pick up
A bicone.
And I'm going to go into the next 11/0 seed bead. And we're going to pop that bicone down into place, and again, come through the next 6 millimeter purl, come through the 11/0, and then come through or pick up your bicone, come through the next 11/0 and 6 millimeter round, and again come through the next 11/0, pick up your bicone, come into the 11/0 here on the connecting bead and through the connecting bead, pull tight, Make sure everything's kind of falling into place. This should dome up a little bit as you do this.
Now we're coming out of this connecting bead here.
Go into the 11-0. Pick up a bicone crystal. And then go through the 11-0 and the 6mm round bead. Just like that. Now, we are coming out of this 6mm round. We are going to start to place our top embellishments. Pick up 5 11-0 seed beads. You're coming out of this one, come up into, you're coming out of the 6mm round anyway, come up into the middle 11-0 and pull your needle through. Okay, pick up 5 more. You're coming out of the middle, come down into the bicone crystal, avoiding all the beads on either side here, and pull. Let me try to dome back up my piece. I'm squishing it. Okay. You just have to arrange your beads as you do this because they want to get all weird and funky. And the tension can be an issue, so just mess with it as much as possible. And then sew through
The 11-0 here, we're coming out of
the
this.
6mm, sew through the 11-0, sew through the crystal and the 11-0 behind it if you can,
And the 6mm round.
and we're going to continue doing the embellishments on the top all the way around, just like I showed you. When you get to the last one, put your needle at an angle, poke it through, pull it through the back, bring your needle back up through,
And do your last part.
and we'll be back. Okay, so I have sewed all my embellishments on, and I'm coming out of the
6mm round bead here. Now, when you are coming through your 6mm rounds after you've embellished here, you can sew all the way around to one on
a more convenient side,
so that when you exit, when you're done, you don't have to sew all the way back down to your next connecting bead.
So in other words, connect your 4 beads, come out of the bead
On the top towards your little embellishment in between, and then start your embellishments and work your way down so that when you're done, you're over on this side more.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. You can sew back through.
If you end up on this part like I did. So I'm coming out of this
6mm round, this connecting one after doing my last embellishment. I'm just going to sew back through my outside beads. Now I'm going to sew one at a time probably because it has a tendency to be tight to get through, and the crystals are laying at a funny angle against the 11-0. So I'm just going to sew all the way back down my piece until I can get to the pearl that I want to connect my next unit to. Actually make my connection for my next unit. So I'm just sewing through all of these beads.
and then through this 6mm round here. Right there.
Now we can start our next connection. So the way we're going to do that is an 11-0 and a 4mm round, an 11-0, a 6-0, an 11-0, a 4mm round, and an 11-0.
We're exiting this pearl here.
We're going to go through the opposite side of the same pearl and pull. And again, we're going to sew through our unit we just created. So go through all of the beads. Once you get through the 6mm on the top here, we're going to start our embellishment. Now this one is just a little bit loose, moves around a little bit.
It's not terrible, but if you want to sew through them again,
You can do that. I'm going to go ahead and start my embellishment the same way. So I'm coming out of this 6mm round. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up a bicone crystal and an 11-0 seed bead, and a bicone crystal, and 2 11-0 seed beads. And then I'm coming out of this side, I'm going to avoid all the beads on either side as I come through and go through and pull these beads down over the top of this little connection. Now I'm going to go up through these beads again. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. It's the same end result regardless, but I'm going to see if I can get them a little tighter this way. So I'm going to go through here, and then I'm going to pick up my 4mm bicone crystal, my 2 11-0 seed beads, come through my 6mm round. Then I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, pick up my 4mm round crystal, and then I'm going to come through the 11-0 on top here, and then back down through these beads on this side right here. This is just reinforcing it a little bit without having to sew back through it as an entire unit. I'm reinforcing it as I'm making the embellishment. See if it actually works. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Same thing, just a little bit different path so that you have more reinforcement in your crystals here. Okay, so now you will just start your next unit again, exactly as you did these. Embellish them and make, I think we're going to make about 6 units. Now I've made 6 full units or components with the connector in between, and I've ended by making my last connector and embellishing it. And my thread is coming out here. At this point, we're just going to set this aside, and then we're going to put a little over arm's length a Fireline onto another needle, or take your needle off and use it again, and it doesn't matter. But you're going to make 1 full unit. And let me get a little closer so you can see. Just like this. Just do the embellishments, do the entire thing, make 1 single unit, and then turn it over. Now I'm coming out of the 6mm pearl. You can come out of any one of them, it doesn't matter. Just be exiting a 6mm pearl, and then pick up 3 11-0 seed beads onto your needle, and a 6mm pearl, and then 3 11-0 seed beads, like this. We're coming out of this pearl right here on this side. We're going to go into the opposite pearl on the same side and go into the pearl. We're going to pull all these beads down and tight, like this. Now, not too tight. You don't want to bunch up your unit, just like that. You can see. Now we're going to pick up 3 more 11-0 seed beads. We're going to go through the 6mm pearl here. Just like that. Again, not so tight that you bunch everything up. Just nice and neat. And then one more time, 3 11-0 seed beads into the 6mm pearl over here. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to sew back through this several times. This is going to be a unit for our clasp. So we're going to connect the bracelet to this 6mm pearl. So we want to make sure this is very strong and secure. So sew back up through the entire thing. Go up through your little 11-0s, your 6mm, your 11-0s, your 6mm, your 11-0s, your 6mm, and do this in that, just following the thread path several times, probably about 3 or 4 times. After you're done with that, then just come down into your main outside row and tie off your thread, cut it off, sear it down, and set it aside, and we'll be back. Okay, so what I have done is I've just sewn through all of my little addition to add this little pearl on several times, and then I came through the outside beads, went through a 6mm round, went through a crystal,
And then I made a half hitch knot, secured it, cut off the thread, and then I melted down the little extra piece of thread so that my unit wouldn't fall apart. And this is what I have, just a little separate unit. And we're just going to set that aside for now. And then we're going to go back to our bracelet piece. Now I'm coming out of the 6mm round right here. We're going to pick up 10 of our little 11/0 seed beads. 3, 4, 5. Like this. And we're coming out of the 6mm round. We're just going to skip over all this stuff and go into the next 6mm round, just like this. Just like that. And that's what you should have. Then you're going to pick up 5 11/0 seed beads, and then a 4mm bicone crystal, and 5 11/0 seed beads. Like this. You're coming out of this 6mm round, you're going to go directly into the next 6mm round bead. Just like this. And pull. And that's what you should have. Now we're coming out of this side of this 6mm round. We're going to pick up 10 11/0 seed beads. Like this. Now we're coming out of this side. We're going to go over the top of the pearl and into the bicone crystal that we just added on our last one. Everything will probably pull loose as you do this, but that's okay because as we get done with this embellishment, we'll secure it back down. So just go through the bicone like this and then pull the beads down around like that. Then pick up 10 more of your 11/0 seed beads. Like this, and go to the opposite bead. So you're coming out here, you're going to go to this next 6mm round, and you're going to go to the outside of the bead, go over the top of it, and go through it. And pull them down. Make sure they're nice and neat and tight. And then, since we're coming out of the 6mm round, we got to get back to this one. We're just going to go right through these little 11/0 seed beads. Again, make sure you don't miss any of them. Pull through. And then go through the bicone and the other 11/0 seed beads, the 5 on the bottom here. And then through the 6mm round, like this. And pull it through. Just like that. That's what that should look like. Now we're going to do this again. We are going to pick up 5 11/0 seed beads, 4, 5. My beads don't want to pick up very fast, sorry guys. And then bicone crystal, and then 5 more 11/0 seed beads, like this. And then we're coming out of this 6mm round here. We're going to go into the next one. Just like this. And then we're going to pick up 10 11/0 seed beads. Like this. We're going to come over the top of the pearl and into the bicone crystal. See if I can get this a little bit more accessible to my hand here. And then just pull the beads around nice and neat like that. Let me back off a little bit. Let's pick up
10 more 11-0 seed beads. And then we're going to go over the top of this pearl into the opposite side of it, into the back side of it, and come through. Make sure you're not picking up any of your little beads on the other side or on this side. Just go through the pearl.
Just like that.
Then come back through the little 11-0s. You're coming out of this side of the pearl now. So come through the first set of 11-0s you put on, and then come through the bicone crystal, and then back through the other side of the 11-0s and through the 6mm round, like this. And we're going to continue doing this until we get to the end of the bracelet, and we'll be back. Okay, so I finished my entire embellishment on this side of the bracelet. I'm coming out of my 6mm pearl after coming back through the first little embellishment, so I'm exiting here. Now on this side we added 10 seed beads to get over to our top bead. On this one we don't have an extension. We're just going to go up to the last bead in our last little unit, our last little component. So what we're going to do is we're exiting this one here. This time we're just going to pick up 5 11-0 seed beads and travel our way up, because 10 is just too much and it'll just be a big loop. So we're going to pick up 5, and we're coming out of this one. We're going to go into this one right here, and that just kind of brings us up over there. Now we are going to pick up, we're going to get our little unit that we made, our little individual unit, and we want to figure out which way we want this on here. And I want my crystals to be basically the same way, because there's 4 crystals on, or because it's not attached here, you're going to have 4 crystals like this. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to attach it maybe pearl to pearl like this. Yes, so I want my pearl, my big pearl, to be here. So I'm just going to lay this like this, and then I'm going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads, if they will get on my needle. And I'm coming out of this side here, so I'm going to drop my 3 11-0s down, and then now that I have decided how I want my crystals and my unit to lay, I'm going to go into this 6mm bead on the middle of the unit here. The unit is upside down, and I'm just going to pull these forward here, just enough so that I can still see the other side, because I've got to attach the other side. So I'm just coming through that one. I'm going to pick up 3 more like this, and then I'm going to go through the 6mm on the unit, or on the bracelet, like this. Now this pulls everything down. Turn it over like this, and just sew back up through your 3 11-0s, your 6mm pearl. Now this is your clasping unit, so it's going to need a lot of reinforcement. I'm going to sew down the other side here. So we're going to sew through this as many times as we can, 3, 4 times, whatever you feel is comfortable. Just come back through the 6mm here, and then, whoops, sew back through the entire thing, just like we just now did, about 3 times, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I've sewn through several times and secured my unit on here very well. Now I'm going to turn my piece back over. I'm coming out the proper way to start my next side of embellishments. So the first thing we need to do, we're coming out of the 6mm round here. We're going to need to pick up 5 11-0 seed beads to travel over to our next 6mm round, so that we can start the embellishments like we did on the other side. So pick up 5. You're coming out of this 6mm round, go into this one. Just like that. And then start the embellishments the same way we did on the other side. So pick up your 5 11-0 seed beads and your bicone crystal, and then 5 more 11-0 seed beads. Little beads. They're just not behaving today. Okay, drop them down and then go through the next 6mm pearl. Looks like that. Make sure I have 5. That looks a little long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I do. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to do the top of it again. So you're going to pick up 10 of your 11-0 seed beads, go through the bicone, go over to the side here, and do exactly the same thing you did on the other side. Work all the way down to the end, and we'll be back. So I have finished all of my embellishments on this side, and I'm coming out of the 6mm pearl here. And just like we did on this side, because we have the extension, we're going to add 10 pearls, not 5 like we did on the opposite end of the bracelet. So let's pick up 10 11-0 seed beads here. Like this. And then I'm coming out of this 6mm bead right here. I'm going to go up into the top one here. And this one, because of all the embellishments and everything, you just kind of have to get around all the stuff. You don't want to go through any of those seed beads that are around the pearl, because then you'll bunch everything up. So now we're coming out of this one. Now we have to make a loop to go around our unit we made for our clasp. Okay, so I have figured out that it takes exactly 35 seed beads to go around my little clasping unit here. But this bracelet is exactly 7 inches long with the 6 units and this one and the loop. So my wrist is exactly 7 inches. Well, I want a little bit of movement on it. I don't want it really tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit of an extension here and give me just a tiny bit more room. Now you don't have to do this. You can put your 35 seed beads on here and just go around it a few times and have your loop, and your clasping will be done. Or you can also, when you're making your main units, just take this off if you want to shorten it and come directly out of the last bead in your unit. Or you can add another unit to make more length, or you can add 2 extensions to make more length. There's several different ways to figure out how to shorten and lengthen the bracelet. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead and pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and then a 4mm round pearl like this. And then I'm going to pick up 35 seed beads. And I'm not going to do that on camera because I don't want you guys to watch me pick up 35 seed beads. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's my 35 seed beads. And it's just right on top of this little 4mm pearl. Now I'm going to come back through just the pearl itself. Right here. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more 11-0 seed beads. And I'm going to go back down into the 6mm pearl. And pull it tight so that it looks like this. Now I'm going to sew back through this entire thing, come up through the little 2 11-0s, the 4mm round, all of my seed beads, back down into the 4mm round, the 2 11-0s, and the 6mm, and I'm going to do that several times so that my loop is very secure, because this is going to get pulled on a lot. So I'm going to do this as many times as possible. We'll go down into the main body of our work, tie our thread off, sew through, tie off again, or make half hitch knots anyway, cut the thread, and then burn it down, and we'll be finished. Okay, so I have finished securing my loop. Now, this goes over the little unit over here really well, but it's very tight as it goes over. So if you'd like to, you could add just a couple more seed beads if you want it to go on and off a little bit easier. You could go like 37, 38 seed beads. I just would rather have it be a little tight so that it doesn't fall off my wrist. But you can always adjust everything. You're never stuck just because I said so. So this is how it goes on. Slide it over the corner, and just, you have to work it over the top beads like this.
It's not horribly tight, but it is tight. And that's how that works. And I'll show you what it looks like on in just a minute. And this is what it looks like on. So you can put your clasping wherever you want, but that's what it looks like on the wrist. And it wears very well, moves very well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a lot of fun making it, and we'll see ya.